So I was thinking about naming this video emotional connections with sexual objects or loving relationships with persons. Now, this is a consideration that I'm proposing. It makes sense. I mean, obviously, you want to be satisfied in any relationship. Now, satisfied in which senses? Sexually? Up to you. Emotionally? I'm sure. But is that it? Is a relationship some sort of harmonization of satisfactions? That sounds pretty good, actually. But what I'm trying to get at is to wonder if growing love between persons, two persons growing love between them, I wonder if it stops there. Is a person a means to your ends? Because I think you can be really satisfied emotionally and not necessarily be providing an act of benevolence yet. Because there's a difference between wanting the good for another person disinterestedly and just being satisfied emotionally. Those are two different things. I think they don't necessarily go together. And I guess it's a good moment for me to bring up this idea by Pope John Paul II about love as the opposite of using a person. For John Paul II, love is unthinkable without a common end. There's this phrase, and a lot of friends have, like, every time that I use it, they ask for a definition. So I'm going to try to convey the idea here. You gotta be careful of a harmonization of egoisms. What is a harmonization of egoisms? I'll put it this way. If two persons proclaim we really love each other at the same time that we use each other for our pleasure, then fair enough. I just would invite those persons to ask themselves whether there is a common end that binds them in their interior. Now, speaking of ends, it's about the ultimate end, and therefore it is proper to question what the true end is. Then there is what I mean by being careful with a harmonization of egoisms. Are you only caring about you? Who are you with? And who is with you? Striving for a common end is the way to break bilateral egoisms that may not be apparent, because I don't think that most people are going to say, I want to be selfish. But I'm sure that a lot of people lack the strength to be selfless and the willingness to take responsibility over the value of the supposedly beloved person. Let's not say supposedly, the beloved person. But I say supposedly because Not always what you think is love, love is. Not always what you think is love. That's what I'm trying to get at. Another way to put it, to emphasize the objective oppositeness, to put it that way, is love demands the common end that binds two persons in their interior, creating a community that has a direction, as opposed to using a person for one sense in separate directions. So that's the idea of thinking of love as the opposite of using. It is also important to speak of the notion of friendship, which is committing the will with conviction over the value of the beloved person. Committing the will with conviction to desire the good disinterestedly of the beloved. So that's really getting at the essence of love, which I think cannot be without a common end and desiring with real benevolence the good of the beloved. So yeah, utility is great, be satisfying a relationship, but it should be subordinated to what is true and good, which is love. Otherwise, it's closer to selfishness than selflessness. To put it briefly, sometimes I write thoughts that are very short. If you get lucky when you do this, they end up reading like poems. So in this case I have this one that I wrote the other day. Haven't published it yet, but I want to publish it on the internet this week, I think. I titled it A Slave or a Master. I think this summarizes it really well. A slave or a master. To be a slave of your sexual desire, or a master of your personal love? Is that the question? Are we sexual objects? Or are we persons who are objects of love? I don't think we are tools and means to ends, but ends in themselves. Desire is a wonderful gift, but it's not the end. Love is the end. The person is the lovely end. So that's one. Contrasting these two notions. But I also believe in highlighting the essence of selflessness. So I have another one that I want to share. And it just started raining, but hopefully it will be done really soon. Oh wait, I have this other one. I think this one is really highlights the idea too. Responsibility. That's the title, but that's how it starts. Responsibility. Don't we want to love with responsibility? Responsibility for the person we love. It's not overwhelming. It's not unpleasant. Responsibility for the person we love. It shouldn't be if we feel we genuinely love. Because if we feel we genuinely love, we long for taking over the responsibility. What is truly important to you, you don't dare leave it in the hands of someone else. The world is too weak to be trusted with the well-being of your beloved. And the last one, I have another one that I want to share. Love is for the courageous, not the cowards. That's the title, and it's how it starts. Love is for the courageous, not the cowards. The cowards, no, I'm sorry, it's the courageous want to love. Because the courageous want to take responsibility for their beloved. It's natural. It comes naturally for them. It's hard for them to feel otherwise. They master their senses. They master their virtues. They master their soul. So it feels easy for them. The cowards have corrupted themselves in pleasure. The cowards fear responsibility. They fear responsibility for a person. They have screwed their senses. They become selfish. Perhaps not because they want to be selfish, but because they lack the strength to be selfless. That's true. I don't think most people will say, I want to be selfish. But a lot of people lack the strength to be selfless. To be selfless takes strength. It takes courage. It takes conviction. Strength doesn't come easily, but virtues can be mastered. One must work for that. Then they come easily. They come with temperance. One then feels happiness in being good. It comes naturally. We become virtuous. It becomes part of the essence of oneself, and it's a great thing. It's powerful. So those are a few ideas about the conception of love that I'm proposing, which focuses on appreciating, affirming with your actions the value of the person with a mature will, and not just in the emotions of the limbic brain. It's important to understand that. Not only sympathy, which is subjective, but also friendship, which is objective and has an act of benevolence. It's not only wanting your own good, but also the good of the beloved person. And the best way to bring this about, because you gotta know how to grow this with a person, is having an emphasis on the common end. Sex is great. You gotta figure out how are you going to handle that. But keep in mind that an emotional connection with an object of sexual use is not love. Love can be perfectly ground with a person for who the person is, first and foremost. So it's not about saying no to desire. I'm just proposing love that transcends desire and that sees the subjective vividness of affection as a reciprocal manifestation of the true love that should have something like an objective profile. John Boston says that a lot, in the interior of persons. Something that, a common end that binds the persons together and creates a community that has a direction. So that's it. Loving the interior, that is true. Enjoying the vividness of affections, of emotional affective reactions, and sympathy as something that provides its warmth and its climate. So those are a few nuances that I believe are important. And that's sort of the idea that I hope we will be able to continue exploring in this channel. Cheers.